Are we back on?
Yeah. Well, no.
Yeah, sorry.
Okay, you're on down. Thank you, Wes.
So administration still holding tight at 9% of the budget. And we'll go down the top sheet and then we'll look at the backup. We've got the FICA retirement. There is a decrease in the health insurance. I'm going to confirm with Lee, but I believe that because of some unknowns right now for some future hires we have, how we're going to budget them in terms of, well, I guess if we adopt our new policy, we know we'll be budgeting them at a flat amount based on single employee.
Not yet.
Which is
That's 23.
Yeah, so for next year, he's got the insurance costs.
Which is it? Which one is this?
Health insurance, line 2100, and administration.
Administration.
So we've got some open spots, and I'm going to confirm with Lee, but the reason health insurance went down and all the other salary things went up is because I think that incorporates maybe flat rate for the new positions. So I'm going to confirm that. But then you'll see the contracts. Contracts went up. Another thing I'm going to confirm here for you guys is that top line salary item. Just looking at the 2022 number, I feel like there's something not quite right here. The 2023 number looks correct based on the back sheet, but that means 2022 can't be wrong. So I'm going to double check the salary numbers for you guys. We'll go through the salary sheet. Next is the first backup sheet. So on the salary sheet, you'll see that there are no promotion or adjustments. There's no permanent raises for any administration staff. Simple merit bonuses and COLA. And I just want you to know that 1, 2, 3, 4 of these employees, their salaries are actually split between departments. So the salaries listed here for those employees are not their complete salaries, their percentage of their salaries. For example, Lee's salary here is 60% of HR salary is 90%, our admin clerk downstairs is 70%, and the water utility clerk is 50%. And also, just note wise for the budget, we have a couple of openings right now. Community coordinator position, what's listed there is open, the TBD is 50. For that proposed COLA, we hope to be filling that one soon. We had a round of promising interviews last week. We're going to follow up this week on. And then over in the licensing department, we're examining our options to get someone in that spot if needed. So salaries, no promotion or raises, few merits, and COLA. So those are the salaries.
They might hire yourself, huh? They might hire yourself, huh? She gets that merit bonus.
My boss would do it.
Well, and actually, Lee's is actually more than what's up there too. So.
Yeah.
How did he get it?
Well, because he's been working, he's been doing everything for us remotely. But,
You get paid, right?
yeah, but he could have just said, you guys hire somebody to take my place for a while and we'll see you later.
Maybe.
With his, no, not maybe, with his military thing, you had to bring him back. So. But he's been doing a real good job. He's been doing a lot of extra work.
What's the deal? He's gone on duty.
You got our base commander for Army base in Texas, West Texas.
He's getting ready to come back from duty.
So he'll be back early July.
How long was he gone for, Joe?
6 months.
Was that it? Like
I thought it was 6.
Like, nah.
He left around September-ish, so about 9 months.
9 months. Okay, I thought.
Was it reserved?
He got called up, and then Lee, while he was out on military leave, so he did have the option of enjoying his military leave and not doing his RD work, but it's still working out pretty well. We'll get a little test of that between now and next Monday and see how quickly he gets.
Yeah.
He is on the ball basically every night. We wake up and everybody's got 10 emails for Lee. I don't know how he's doing it, honestly.
And Aaron, the only relevance in terms of the percentage allocation where it's not 100% to administration is because it's being applied to the enterprise fund, which is separate, the water, et cetera.
Yeah.
So those employees, their salaries are paid partly out of the water sewer, partly out of
With all these, with all the COLAs and the merit, where does that put us in our, are we still looking at that compensation study and trying to get certain numbers and how close are we to them? Or are we just kind of going?
So as of this current FY22 budget, everyone has been brought up to their target salary identified in it. The next step, and this is for you guys to debate as possible, the next step of the compensation study said hold those base salaries even by a 3% increase every year. So this, this 8% increase evens it out for inflation, so to speak. It doesn't address that 3% growth in base salary, but in terms of compensation study target salaries, everybody was brought up over the last 3 budget years. So this year we're all on par. The next tab is operating supplies. A slight bump there in the city logo apparel. Printer cartridges, that should be blue. We inherited that one from IT. I'll confirm. Dues and training. We've got. I do want to just, the actuals are here. They are on the top sheet. If you look at the actuals on the top sheet, you'll see that dues and training is low this year. It's probably going to be low the year before, and that's because of COVID. But we do hope to get everyone back engaged and actively seeking out in-person training opportunities next year. So this budget basically carries over last year's dues and training budget. I know he rolled up a couple of small things, so it's about $200 increase from last year for dues and training. And then that takes us to contracts, which is the big one. And then here he backed these contracts out to show what they were in IT in the last 2 years. It's going to give you a more better, that's not a term, increase in how the total contracts change. And you'll see that the big difference here is those two $25,000 contracts for the website and communication. We spent those, so they're not for FY23. And a couple of them we worked as hard as we could with VC3 for all the IT contracts. Say, can you reach out and talk to this vendor? Do they know they're going to increase the price? Do they think they might increase the price? So those are our best guess estimates of increases for any of the IT contracts that are going to go up, minus the big spends for the website from last year. So those are the administrative contracts. And it's only $1,000 for that top line. Actually, those top 2 lines, those are always those placeholders. We could spend 0, we could spend 8,000. It just depends on how it goes and what we need. Do note that temporary admin assistance is in there for another year, and we've already reached out to our intern from last year to get him going. Hopefully this summer when this budget passes. The next tab is the community coordinator budget, and because that position is not filled, we kind of carried it over. The only extra thing you'll see here is some support for BC3 for New Year's Eve and flip-flop drop. But otherwise, we're putting that community coordinator kind of the same to give them a chance to come in and look around and see what's needed. We did about halfway down, you'll see a $6,000 line item called monthly recreational events.
Where is that?
On the community coordination tab sheet.
Alright.
That was previously a couple of things. There was some supplies and also the bucket brigade. And so the bucket brigade's up and going. Jared's got those supplies. And so we substituted that in their budget for monthly recreation events. We hope when the new community coordinator comes on, that role will have a little stepped up programming in terms of city offered programming of various types, which I can't predict what they're gonna be, but that's the goal. And then last sheet's the forecast, so that's the proposed administration budget. Nothing really changing other than the salary and the contracts. Any questions on this? If not, if Andrew and Rob can give me just 1 minute, I'd like to just go over my call outs here to make sure I've captured everything. Wes is my ultimate backup, so he's gonna call me out too.
You gotta earn that money.
So, in the narrative, we'll adjust the statement about the ARP money to make sure we include stormwater and drainage. On the top sheet, I'm gonna ask Lee to kind of tease out how he plussed up these numbers for inflation versus true growth. So what, if he could pull out inflation and just give us how much he gave for true growth and see if that comports with previous trends. Under the revenue sheet, we're going to ask you to look at parking tickets and paid parking to see if there's room in there to raise those. To bring up the alcohol tax also to at least $200K. And for him to research the ride share tax and see how that's coming over what he thinks of that. On the revenue, but also on the worksheet, for him to take another hard look at hospitality tax and make sure that's not, maybe he's gotten some additional information, or maybe just based on this to see if he can plus that up a little bit. For the property tax, it's just a general question to see if we can research how quickly sale prices are incorporated into assessed values, and if that's fast enough to turn around and have any impact on this budget. For city council salaries, we're going to substitute Councilmember Ray for Councilmember Ellis.
Oh, and I also noticed on the city council agendas, A was just slotted into where E was, otherwise they're alphabetical.
Okay.
So,
all right.
It's
changed.
yeah, with pro tip. That whole thing is addressed.
Pretty sure I saw pro temp by his name, but Eddie was where Amy should be.
Oh, okay.
FYI.
Council support, we'll poll around and we'll get these research for other municipalities to do in terms of personnel, cost of living increases. For court contracts, somewhere probably in facilities, we're gonna add $10K for a metal detector. And we're gonna ask Lee for the backup and explanation of the $30K court bond cost.
Because, you think about it, all the courts have it, every court, and they have court here. I don't know about the other city councils, but I feel better that some nut can, pull out a gun and start firing at us.
Any tool we can do to increase public safety is good. In administration, I'm going to ask him to double check the 2022 salaries and 23 numbers to find out. Definitely went up by more than $2,000. So I'm going to ask him to tease out what's going on there. And then I apologize, I skipped over for general government. Put back in the public facing boundaries for 5K. And get him to confirm that March 2023 probably really March 2022.
And then to the extent that we communicated that better or differently, that would come out of advertisements.
Or we might just do on the web page or with the Sandsburg or on the sign.
Low to no cost.
Yeah, I don't think, it would be like an advertising, not like an advertising campaign.
It would be we're not going to
We don't
courier.
Yeah, we don't have to spend any money. Okay.
So, are there any other things you guys noted that? Got it. Take away where we go for it today.
Tim, one second.
Got it. I got it.
Thank you.
The voice carries well, let's go.
Tunnel.
So, is there no other changes for me on the Andrew possibly Brandon hit the floor.
Alright, I will say public safety might be a little easier to take since you have a little nourishment. You're ready to go.
Well, you know, I know it's a big ask. I'm gonna give my own plug for the COLA ask. You know, one of the questions you asked earlier was how that fits with other municipalities that are in this area. I can say, at least for the public safety side, that with that COLA as is, that brings us up to what Isle of Palms is offering, Sullivan's Island, MUSC. It's actually a little less than what Goose Creek is offering. So from the public safety side, I can say that homework has been done, and this by no means puts us any kind of in the stratosphere as far as what I guess the people or the agencies that we're fighting for staff for, right? The same staff that are gonna work at one will work at another, right?
So it puts you on par with them in terms of their total wages paid,
That's
but
correct.
not necessarily in terms of how they're paying COLA. I just wanna make sure.
Yeah, with the COLA, that just puts us on what they're offering, that, you know what I'm saying?
Right, again, so my point is,
As a
in all
base
this
salary.
is, again, all very deserving.
Sure.
And if we need to get you to a higher place to be comparable with our peers,
Sure.
you know, there's multiple ways to accomplish that. What I'd rather not happen for us is someone to say, wow, what an outlier, Folly Beach gave an 8% cost of living increase, when we could accommodate the same thing in different ways, not calling it a COLA increase. That makes sense to everyone.
Yeah, the verbiage on how y'all, you know, make sense of it is fine. I just wanted to let you know that 8% as is doesn't put us in the stratosphere compared to what other agencies
And by
are
no means
offering.
was I ahead of there.
Yeah, if you wanna, so if we're gonna play the shell game, we take 5% off the COLA and add 5% to each annual salary baseline.
Why? Something will change.
It's all the same, it's all the
It's all the
same,
same, but it just,
just
it's just really,
Looks a
it's
little
really
better.
attention getting the 8%. You never.
yeah, that's
never
fine,
get
I mean, I
8%
don't
COLA.
care,
Yeah,
it's gonna end up being the same thing.
right.
And you know, the other thing, and I'm not saying anything y'all don't already know, but Charleston is not an affordable place to live. And it is even less of an affordable place to raise a family. And those are the kind of people that obviously we're trying to, you know, recruit and keep. I mean, I look at it no different than probably what you run into, you know, with the service restaurant is, where are these people, where are they supposed to live? You know what I mean? Because it's not gonna be anywhere around here. And that's the same thing we're running into. And so I think that's just, you know, affordable housing and all that goes along with this. And I think anything we can do to help compensate our people where they can live and work in this area is the ideal thing.
So are you capturing that?
Mm-hmm.
So that might be a question, if Lee can fix all of them that way? If that's the way I wanna see the numbers listed, I mean, if you wanna say 3% COLA and 5% adjustment salary wise, I mean, it gets to be the same thing in the end.
But I feel more comfortable with that than somebody being creative and reporting about.
So he can fix that with money.
Well, think of it like this, take it for reporting, he's the only one that's gotta answer that, not us.
Oh, yeah, no, y'all gotta answer, cause y'all, I just give you the budget, y'all gotta approve it.
You're not gonna, yeah, you're not gonna come out here and report something good.
Honestly, that's not bad with everything else we have going on right now, let him report on that.
For sure.
I think it is good. I mean, I like it from the standpoint, if you're gonna recruit and somebody hears that you just gave 8%, and
It's like the last news article out of Mount, Palms, what was it, not even 6 months ago, talking about how they're gonna be the highest paid in the whole state. Well, this puts us on par with that, so they can no longer say that. So it's no longer a chip in their hat or a feather in their hat. So,
No, like I said, either way, it doesn't make, as long as the bottom line's the same, it doesn't make any difference what you call it.
alright, so anyway.
You like, I know Lee can do it, so do you want the books changed for next week, or do you wanna hold off on the final decision on how to represent that until next week?
I wouldn't change it before next week.
Alright,
I
so.
mean, there's no use to print that up again before next week, we'll get through all the basic things, and then go back and change it one time.
So hopefully
So
y'all.
Wes has gotta create all new books after next week.
So hopefully y'all have, our budget statement, that I tried to include in our submission. What I'll try to do first is kind of highlight some of the changes, because I feel like it just gives you more, like, it highlights the changes. Anyway, one of the things we're requesting on the police department side is, as you know, with the departure of Ms. Mumford in our records manager position, one of the requests in this budget is to change that into a desk sergeant position, which would encompass all the current duties of that position, plus things like walk-in reporting, fingerprinting, evidence room assistance, and then also the additional coverage on holidays, special events, weekend rotations, and staff shortages as needed.
Okay, so that was, again, my idea, in our prelim meetings, because we're already talking about, in order to staff that position, they might have to raise the base salary. So it's just, one of those crazy ideas you have. Well, if we're gonna do that, let's really do it right and keep it as a sworn officer, so we could use it for more than one thing. And that gives us some flexibility, which you really need in a small department, more than I think you need a civilian clerk. I think having the flexibility of that person being able to help out, especially around holidays or weekends or whatever,
Like Massarelli,
makes it
remember?
makes it a better process.
She still had him as the, administrative assistant.
Oh, you're going way back.
Yeah,
Wow. I mean,
most people don't even remember George.
What page do we?
This is
we're
just
getting
just
police
Oh,
officers.
okay.
I'm just kind of giving you an overview first, and I'll go through individually. And let's see, requesting a small increase on the part-time salaries line. What that covers is the beach patrol, who's also currently doing code enforcement out on the beachfront. It's been extremely successful. We're getting a lot of enforcement out there. As a result, we had to give them a competitive pay, which the same kind of pay that All Palms offers for their code enforcement guys. So as a result, we're just asking for a small bump in that line in order to help cover those costs. But we do see a return on that money.
So you're speaking to the appointing multiple part-time beach patrol and parking officers?
That's correct.
So he's on this personal page.
So that would take them, it was 13-16, you know what that takes them to per hour?
Yeah, the code guys who are doing, guys and gals that are doing the code enforcement as well as beach patrol are 15. Another requested change is a plus up in the police department certification stipend. The reason for that is to certify additional 4 officers as firefighters and 4 officers as EMTs. And that would be the corresponding stipend for the additional responsibility that those positions bring with it.
You have a backup sheet for that?
No, sir.
I'm just wondering, are you adding items for certification or adding money to the current list of certification items?
Not changing anything at all, just actually certifying additional.
Just getting more people signed up for the programs exactly.
Programs exactly.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So you
So we've had a lot of success with it.
It seems like it. I mean, we got quite a few. Like when I got here in 2012, there really was only just a handful of officers that were still dual certified. It was just a handful, maybe 3, 4 at the most. And it's been a real concerted effort over the years to get people additionally certified, and I think we've done a good job doing that.
Well, it's not just that, there are a lot of medical things. I can't remember that whole list.
Sure.
But there's all kinds of different items the more they did just to make them better rounded, more experienced, more professional individuals we have, and also give them ways to increase their own salary to fire merit for fires.
So you got that list. You might
Yes.
want to incorporate that.
Yeah, I can do that. I guess the only reason I didn't is because we didn't really change it. The program's not changed. It's just I could give you guys the refresh version of that or the current version of that.
When you do that, can you list who is where?
Sure.
Like, what people have already gotten, just so I can compare that with, if I keep my budget books, we can kind of compare that and see.
Yeah.
just, I think that's a great thing to kind of to brag about, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I think that's no problem at all. And like y'all know, we update that twice a year, so we know everybody what's current, who has what, so we'll have that for you, no problem. Police department operating, I'm not asking for any change, it's actually down slightly, but what I am asking for is to reallocate or realign some of those costs. One of the things I'd really like to do is address the northbound ALPR camera. It's percentage-wise not as effective as the inbound camera, and that's simply due to orientation with the lanes. And so part of those funds I'd like to use to have the company come out and readdress that, try to make it more effective. 6 body cameras and additional batteries, and then some a couple laptops to have some spares. We did the big refresh last year, it works great. All the equipment is absolutely fantastic. We're just wanting to make sure I can have some spares in case something goes down. See,
Do you know when those cameras are down real time?
the body cameras, or what do you call those?
Yeah.
Yeah, so part of their standard operation procedure for dispatch is that they're logged in every day, and so we'll know when they're up, when they're down. The state does the maintenance. That was one of the benefits of using that specific company, is SLED maintains not only the data, but also the maintenance side of it. So, you know, that was one of the reasons we wanted to.
Another good thing with the state doing the maintenance, this new, I can't remember the name of the new app that Channel 2's putting out. From Channel 2? Channel 4. What's the name of the app, you remember?
Know before you go.
Know Before You Go.
Is that for
It's
traffic?
huh?
Is that for traffic?
Yeah, that's really, but Trooper Bob on Channel 4 monitors every camera that the state maintains for this area. And if something goes down, he calls DOT real quick to get it back up. So he has a good working relationship that helps us try to keep it up too.
Keep finding stuff for him.
Huh?
They keep finding stuff for him.
Who, Trooper Bob?
Yeah.
Oh,
They want to keep him employed so bad.
yeah.
So it happened.
But their whole process is going to be on their Facebook thing, website, and all that. It's a really good system they got built up for Folly Beach, Alfonso, Island.
What's the Folly friendly channel? 4?
All of them.
All of them like us?
I mean, depends on what day it is.
You mean the news outlet?
Yeah.
I mean, we have working relationships with 5 and 4. I haven't experienced anti-Folly news outlet.
So, but what, so the origin of my question, what happened in New York City in the subway? They had cameras everywhere, but yet they weren't working. But we would know.
Yeah, we know real time whether or not it's working, and to that specific issue, that's going to be addressed in this year's budget. The IT stuff that Aaron talked about earlier, with getting the cameras up and going on center, the wires dangling around by his office, getting cameras on center streets, things like that is something that we're actively working on this budget here to get up and going. And then once that's done, there's 2 monitors, not that big, but there's 2 TVs above dispatch, and that's all it's going to be is camera feeds throughout the city and things like that. So that's something that's we're already working on getting done with this budget. Yeah, the current one.
You have the current, not this
The one we're working out of.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think you have enough there to finish it?
Yeah, I do. That's something we went over the other day when we were kind of going over what was left for this budget year and kind of getting, what is it, BC3 kind of gave us a cost, what they think it would cost to fix everything and get it up and going. We could do that, so we decided to move forward this year.
Yeah.
And that includes stuff like panic buttons in here for the front desk, for help buttons outside that are actually kind of like a modified version of the Ring cameras, you know, where you're gonna be able to push it and have video and audio and everything. So it's pretty cool. All right. One of the big changes, and this actually applies to both police and fire, but you'll see in a little bit under the capital account, switching from our current fleet program to the managed fleet program. What it's looking like conservatively is a projected savings of over $750,000 over the next 10 years. An average annual savings of a little over $75,000. and then past that 10 years, an average sustainable savings of $14,415. I'll get into detail in a little bit, but that's something that's going to affect police, fire, and then I believe we talked to Eric's the DPW crew as well. So that's a huge thing. We've done tons of research that we'll be able to share with y'all as far as calling other municipalities and governments that use that same program, and I couldn't hear enough positive. We didn't get one negative call from any single person we talked to. And all of them said that they see the exact kind of savings that were being presented. So anyway, we'll get to more detail on that later, but just keep that back in mind. The PD contracts, the real change is just moving the IT accounts over. As Aaron told you guys earlier, there's really nothing additional added. It's just moving those accounts over to the department.
Did the United Rentals go up, or we got an extra card?
It did not go up. What I plussed it up to do is to have the cards a little bit longer through the year, because we've noticed that the weather is kind of spreading out, and so we wanted to make sure we had those reliable vehicles a little bit longer throughout the year. So that's the reason I plussed it up. All right. So on the detail side of the house, when we were talking about on the police department, when we were talking about that desk sergeant position, we initially, when we were talking with the mayor, we were talking about having to plus that account up, or that salary up, in order to attract, talent. And so we were shooting for kind of that $40,000 mark initially. When we started talking about the need to be more flexible and have all the additional responsibilities that we mentioned earlier, the additional cost is right around $14,000 over that change. So I think it's a bargain, and it gives us the ability to have extra officers for special events and things like that. So I think it's a good thing at a relatively low change in cost.
And that's keeping the same number of people on the street. So,
Yes.
So that's just sergeant.
So we'll hire to replace that street person,
Right.
which just moves up to the office. Can you, going back into contracts at the very bottom, 3 police fleet vehicles and upfitting, you move from police capital, you lease them, not purchase them. What's going on with that? I don't have trouble getting cars,
What's that?
so are we leasing them?
Yeah, I'll actually
That's part of that.
I'll get you there.
Things talking about.
Yeah, we'll get you there.
Okay.
I'll get you there.
All right.
Like I mentioned earlier, the exact number of costs that I'm asking for in the part-time salaries is $10,000. Again, that's to cover the additional cost of having ticket writers instead of just trash pick rubbers. If that makes sense, and it's about as simple as I can put it.
I thought it was $80,039 for part-time salaries, beach and parking.
Yeah, I'm asking for just the increase of 10. That's what I meant by that.
Oh, okay, so you wanted to take it to 90,000?
Yes, correct.
And what did you mean by ticket writers, not just trash pickers?
So historically, our beach patrol was only able to serve the function of picking up trash and litter, and now they have the additional responsibility and ability to write some of our local ordinance tickets as well as pick up trash, and they write a lot. I mean, the glass on beach, the alcohol, a lot of those things. So that's what they're doing now.
Including smoking.
How many smoking tickets have I written?
One that I know of. I mean, there could be more, but there's one that I know.
Gotcha.
And I think that was one of those ones where they were told to take it off and decided not to. Let's see here. I talked about the specific difference in operating supplies. The account overall is down just about 6,000. Just asking for the change in where some of that money goes. Let's see here. No change in dues and training. And then getting down to the specifics on capital that DJ mentioned. Yes, what I'm requesting is to go to what they call a managed fleet program, which effectively leases the vehicles. But when you think of a lease, don't think of it as like your personal lease, because it's not different. This is really a cash management program more so than it is like, you got to worry about miles or things. It's not like that at all. It's a cash flow method. and it's managed by Enterprise Fleet. I'm sure you've heard of Enterprise, and it's through their government section that specifically helps municipalities, manage their fleets, obtain vehicles. And I did put that into the backup, so I'm sure you'll see the synopsis form. It should look like this on the front as a big green thing. And this is the analysis of our current fleet situation, the objectives that we're trying to accomplish, what we're trying to do, basically all the way through this program. With this, what we're talking about going to,
Chief, where was that?
should look like,
Where's that in our book?
there's our backup, should come up as backup.
Not
It's
the
not,
police. Is it under like
we didn't get it
supporting
in here,
schedule?
so
Okay, well, we can make some
we'll get your copy.
copies.
I see a fleet alternative.
Yeah, that's what we're talking about.
But that's not the
That's
brochure
not the
he's talking about. That's what he's talking about, but he had a brochure that was supposed to
Oh,
be
okay.
this information. When they first started talking about it, it's like, I don't believe it. So
Yeah.
they started making, huh? That's what it looked like, and they started making phone calls and everybody saying, yeah.
Several of the municipalities are going to this. Associate of mine who does this, and he says it's the cheapest way to go. It's so cost effective, especially for the coastal towns.
I left another message, I'm gonna have to call back.
We
and
got-
say, hey, I got 3 cars in the budget this year.
Your cousin's out of business.
No more fixing transmissions for $2,500.
Giving me nightmares talking about that. I still remember sugar in the transmission and just moving it off.
That's all that.
Anyway, what I can also do too, I mean, these I can give to you later, but these are all, this whole thing, these are all municipal references and county references throughout South Carolina and Georgia. And like I said, every one of these is absolutely positive, and they said you're stupid not to do it. So it really made us feel, that's the first thing the mayor said. He's like, sounds too good to be true, call people. And so that's when we got to work. And it was eye-opening. It was really great, actually. One of the few times you call them and what they told you is what they do. So it was nice. Let's see here.
Fast copy.
So, not to argue for Eric's budget, but the arguments I'm making today will fit his situation as well. So generally speaking, they shorten your vehicle's life cycle by rotating the cars out more often, and as a result, taking advantage of resale values and lower maintenance costs. And that's the general concept. You can obviously take your time, look through here, and see exactly what it is that they're doing.
But the city still owns the vehicle?
Yeah, so
It's an asset on our books?
it is, how they do it is they take all of your current, I guess, owned assets, and over the period of time in which they phase in the rental fleet or the lease fleet, that kind of offsets your costs, if that makes sense. And so by the end of it, I'd say it looks like year 5 or 6, it at that point is a 100% lease fleet. You own any equipment that's attached to the vehicle, you own any of that, but the car itself at the end of that term, basically you sell back, and whatever they get in and above, that turning cost, similar to like a personal lease, that gets rolled into the program. That makes sense. And so that's how it works. But one of the benefits is, and a huge savings, and what a lot of the cities talked about was that their maintenance costs went down to pretty much changing oil. a tire or two when you have a nail in the tire. Because the vehicle, by the time the manufacturer warranty's up, the vehicle is getting turned back in. So you're not having those major engine overhauls and transmission overhauls and front end replacements and things like that we run into now.
Yeah, there's a perfect point at which to trade in a vehicle. Many people keep a vehicle beyond that point.
And that's one of the things they do is maximize that based on their experience on the commercial side of the house, right? So they're basically taking some of the decisions they've made on the commercial side of the house, applying it to government agencies. So it's not exactly like a lease like you and I would do. There's no issues with mileage, there's no issues with wear and tear. That's not, it's just not the same there. What we're talking about, the costs that are assigned here is going to a 100% hybrid fleet. So that's something we started a number of years ago, as you all know. This would be able to get us through the rest of the vehicles. So we will be running a 100% hybrid fleet. And that will be by 2026, which is significantly sooner than we would have been able to do it otherwise. Let's see here. So what I'm requesting in this budget is to move forward with this program and take what monies I would have spent as a normal budget year to put into reserve to help offset those costs next year. So effectively, from a budget standpoint, there's no change this year, but you'll see that savings moving forward because I'm just carrying that money over in reserve.
So how quickly would it be before we had our first hybrid vehicle?
We're already there. We started that 2 years ago. We're waiting on the two from last year still. They're actually supposedly on a train, a long train to nowhere, I guess. We ordered those last June, and with those two, we'll have like 5 or 6 hybrids already. And I mean, we're one of the only agencies I know of that are doing that around here.
So
it's been a huge success. We're seeing on administrative vehicles, we're seeing about a 54% savings in fuel costs. And on patrol vehicles, like normal road patrol with the markings and everything, we're seeing a 31% savings in fuel costs compared to everything else.
That's fantastic. So we have 220 charging stations at public safety.
All of ours are full hybrid, so you don't have to have a charging station. They don't
plug in anything?
No, they charge themselves with regenerative braking and all that kind of stuff. So they're not the kind you have to plug in.
Right.
Like a full hybrid, like a Tesla. They're more like
an e-car. Not an e-car, so I agree.
Okay.
Yeah, so there is a gasoline engine in it, but it runs on, like for instance, when we picked them up, the first time we picked them up was interesting. I was driving down the road and I was about 38 miles an hour and I was like not hearing anything. I thought maybe the car shut off and it actually did, just caught me off guard. So it was just driving on electric.
That's great.
So it's kind of cool, but anyway, when I get back over there later, I'll scan all these, all these forms where we called out and got people's opinions, and I'll forward those along to you guys as well, so you can read through the different agencies we called. All right. So those are all the changes on the police department side, unless you all have any questions.
So why are we still putting 96,000 into the police reserve, or is that?
Yeah, so what I'm asking to do is basically take what would have normally been our budget, put it into the reserve, basically use that to pay the payment next year. Does that make sense? So
Yeah, so we won't have that line item in there. Oh, I see what you're saying.
just trying to keep it, that way the budget's not really changing, but then you're gonna have money next year to offset.
Okay.
Because I think the year one transition cost is only like 38, it's in there, under that police.
Yeah, it was under the capital outlay.
Yeah.
So if we're paying the first year transition costs, if we're paying the 38,000 this year for it, then why are, hang on with me here a second. Why are we putting the money in the reserve for next year's cost if we're already paying it? You know what I mean?
I guess I meant.
The following year, why would we just put?
You could.
Why would we not spend that? Why would we spend that money on something else right now and just put it in every year instead of putting 100,000 away where we put 40,000 away for cars. So we could, okay. You know, because one of the things that and Tim and I spoke about this, about the millage increase and getting 2 more full-time firefighters. I brought to you, I'd love to try and get y'all another officer, you know, especially for like the weekend night shifts. You know, I've seen those guys in a lot of interesting situations, you know, where there's a lot of people on the street and they're severely outnumbered if something, you know, goes off. So I think just having another person, and this is in addition to the desk sergeant and all the other stuff we were talking about. And you kind of school me, I definitely see why we need 2 full-time firefighters. We want to be more dependent on our guys and not the other ones. But I still think, you know, getting y'all another officer at your disposal will be a good thing. Everything we're hearing right now, even with short-term rental stuff and just everything. Phone calls yesterday about a dog. You can't have enough. You know, cops are never where you need them. You hear that complaint all the time. You know, they're always around when you don't need them, never around when you need them. And y'all work your tails off, but you can't be everywhere at once. You know, it's just adding somebody, especially, you know, for the seasonal extra coverage. I was trying to nitpick ways earlier with the expenditures or with the revenues, but we could easily move some of that money over too, instead of saving it for future years' car leases. You know, maybe take some of that plus some of those revenue items and add another full-time officer. Yeah. Just throwing that out there, y'all, because that's where my mind's at. I'd like to feel y'all on that. So, and we still keep our 2 firefighters. Everything you're talking about.
No, I was just gonna say. So, what he's saying is, you need to give us a breakdown of what hiring a full-time officer would be. So you're talking about $100,000 for 96,000.
For the salary sheet, you're only looking at like 50 to 60.
Did you know you gotta look all the way over benefits and everything?
Yeah.
That's why I'm saying he can give us the breakdown.
But yes, as far as being able to start this transition and entering into this fleet management program, yes, that costs us $38,544.
Okay.
So the idea of putting that 96,500 or 456 into a reserve was just merely to offset costs next year. But if y'all have a different idea, that's obviously.
In my head, I was thinking 75 for a new employee, so that would even offer enough money to do that and have most of the money for next year's program if it stays there. It's just taking the same money, just kind of doing different things with it. In my mind, I'd rather see it spent that way, give y'all some more resources, give you another person down there to work some of these shifts. I mean, like I said, weekends during the summer, man, those guys get in some real crazy situations sometimes, especially around 2 a.m. when everybody's leaving at one time. That's when I've seen them. When fights happen in certain bars, they're always at the end of the night. It's always when you force everybody out on the street, and then 3 officers get surrounded real fast. You know, it doesn't take much, before they're outnumbered, and that's a bad reason to make the news.
How much lead time would we have if Enterprise terminated this program? In other words, if too good to be true is in fact too good to be true down the road, like they've not underwritten this program correctly, and either the fees go through the roof or they just say we want out of the business and we're left in a place where we no longer own a single police car and we have to go out and buy however many we have today.
What kind of lead time? Like,
yeah,
as far as like if they voided the contract?
Yeah, so is our contract, is it a 3-year contract and they have provisions for early termination? Just so that we might still, if we go into this program, we still might want to have a reserve for a worst case scenario in which we have to go and buy some cars fast.
I will say, I'll find that out, but the majority of the folks that we call, asking for references have been doing this for a very long time. So, they have a good track record, I guess.
How old is the program?
I don't know how old the total program is, but we got people that have used this thing 5, 6, 7, 8 plus years.
Because if it's a 3-year program, I'd be more worried about what you're talking about. If it's been effective 15, 20 years, well then they've probably got a pretty good model going by now. I don't know how they make money, but I'd like to know that. What does Enterprise get out of this?
Car value resale.
But come on, we resold cars before. I mean,
yeah, but ours always wore out. Because it's run out of sugar.
$500.
It's a trap though. You get more for selling nowadays, but to buy the next new replacement vehicle, it's expensive too. So
Well, one thing that they said that made sense kind of was that they buy cars from whoever they wanna buy cars from, so they're not stuck in a state contract. That was one way that they saved you money, was being able to really leverage buying cars or trucks or whatever vehicles on a broader basis.
So
They're
you're
probably-
saying
they have a
pick
fleet.
vehicles that we want?
They buy by
Yeah.
the fleets.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll look through that packet later, I was
Yeah,
just
it's
off the top
It's
of my head.
100%, we can go with whatever vehicles we want. I just had them set it up because I know that we want to do hybrid, so I told them, I said, I want it to be all hybrid, so.
And those SUV deals are working very well for us, so we're trying to switch over those instead of the
No,
cars
it's exactly
themselves.
that. Well, the cars, actually now, no one's making cars anymore.
Right.
Even the Charger, they've stopped.
So even with this new program, we are still kind of limited by what's available, but not nearly as much as the state contract.
Yeah, because right now, as an example, if I wanna buy a car, I have to go with one dealer out of Santee that holds a state contract, and so does every other person in the state. So, I mean, as an example, we've been waiting on cars for over a year, just about a year. But whereas, like he mentioned, the benefit of Enterprise is they're not confined with buying. They're gonna get us the cars at least state contract or lower, so that still benefits us, but they can go anywhere in the nation.
Right.
Like a little leverage with Ford.
Yeah.
They do, because they're
Versus-
buying hundreds of thousands of cars a
Yeah,
year from every one of the
I
manufacturers.
understand how it works.
Yeah, it works.
That's a benefit. Anyway, so that's that. Let's see. So moving on to the fire department stuff. I can kind of go over the highlights. I was out obviously last week, as y'all know, with my grandmother's death. So some of the stuff, like I don't have the cost in front of me with the adding officers, but it sounds like y'all worked that out last week. So obviously I can update these forms once we do that at that time. But, other than that, we were requesting the ability to do a fourth part-time firefighter annually. Right now, we currently do it for at least 7 months out of the year. And to add the additional months, the cost was $34,560 in part-time salary, $2,700 $57.24 and the SCRS retirement.
So you were asking to move one of the part-timers to full-time, and we're looking at 2 more full-times. So that now give us 3 more full-times total.
One
right?
per shift.
Okay, but that pulls up to 3 this year that we're adding.
Right.
Whereas your thing did 2 and you wanted 1, okay, I got you.
So let's see here, on the part-time salary line, no requested change, but requesting the ability to, if we're able to hire part-time paramedics, to pay them $18 an hour out of that line. Let's see here, in the fire department certification stipend, requesting $7,500 to certify 2 fire PSOs as paramedics. Actually, requesting the paramedic stipend increased to $7,500. I'm sorry, I misspoke. And then certifying 2 fire PSOs as paramedics. I think currently it's in there for, what's it, 3,500, I believe, for paramedics. I think it's 35. Because EMT is 25. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's in there, but I just didn't know if we were, all right. So requesting the increase the paramedic stipend to $7,500 annually.
Where's that at? Is that on the 5220?
Yes, the 5220 certification stipend.
Certification bonuses?
Yes, 1108. Basically, the program that DJ mentioned earlier, we have stipends or like a certification bonus for additional certifications and responsibilities. So like if a police officer gets certified as a firefighter or a firefighter gets certified as a paramedic, giving them an incentive to do that because it's a difficult thing do, and plus it gives the city, yeah, we agree. Gives the city the ability to have them on staff, right, without having to hire a paramedic separately, right? And so he's gonna print out the program, and give you guys a copy, but that's what we're requesting. I think the last time we were talking about it is Mount Pleasant, I think, offers 10,000.
Yeah, they incorporated into their salary, they pay their firefighter paramedics $10,000 more a year to be firefighter paramedics.
Just heads out reference.
They incorporate that into their salary, $10,000.
All right. Go ahead.
And what we're proposing is to pay our certified paramedics at $7,500 a year under the stipend incentive program, split up twice a year. And just to clarify that, right now, we have one firefighter that just finished paramedic school, waiting to take his national board exams for paramedic practical and written. And one of the PSOs just started paramedic school. It's going to be about a year before they get finished. And we have one fire captain that's trying to get recertified as a medic at this time. So that program will be ended this budget year, his program, to see if he gets certified probably after July. So what I'm saying is that firefighter just finished paramedic program, passes his exam, national board exams, we'll have one fully certified paramedic, firefighter paramedic on board that we'll be paying the $7,500 to. And when the fire captain gets his recertification between now and the end of the fiscal year, he'll be going to $7,500 for paramedic. The one that just started paramedic training, his $7,500 would not kick in until next fiscal budget preparation year.
Currently, or with what you just mentioned, do we have round-the-clock coverage of at least one paramedic?
We're not currently.
I think that's the goal to be.
We do have some part-time paramedics that work with us from other agencies every once in a while, but they cannot do the ALS stuff while we're still just a BLS system. That's what they say, but no, we don't have at least one full-time firefighter paramedic yet.
And the fire department uniforms, requesting 4,000 for standardized dress uniforms for the full-time staff. And the fire department capital account, not requesting any increase in the account, but asking a reallocation from the Lucas device, which was purchased last year, to a replacement beach rescue cart, as the current cart lease ends during this upcoming budget. Let's see here. The fire department contract line is lower due to the removal of Mr. Wagenbrenner's contract. And the only change is to add the ESO contract from IT, and it is plussed up slightly to cover software to manage checkoffs and equipment inventory.
Why are we removing Wagenberg's contract?
He left.
He retired.
He didn't renew it.
So we put that in place a couple years ago for a reason, I thought. That was take stuff off of your plate.
Who is he?
So what's the story now? Because we had to do that a couple years ago, but now we're saying we don't? Is that what's
we have
happening?
an compliance officer still, and that's me, right now.
So,
It's between me and Raymond Lloyd, who is part-time.
okay. I mean, I'm not mad that it's gone. I'm mad that we wasted money on it for a couple years.
No, we spent those 2 years catching up from where it's at.
Man, I argued that one to begin with, I didn't like that.
What did he do?
And now it's gone and we're not replacing it. That's that just proves my point. A couple years ago, we didn't need that.
He did a lot of paperwork, not only for the fire department, but for over here too, around the safety and OSHA compliance and safety manuals and all that kind of stuff.
But we're not replacing it now because they're doing
Well,
it. I mean,
because it's said and done, all you gotta do is keep it up.
I'm not gonna go backwards, but it just kind of proved my point 3 years ago. We didn't need that.
Well, you did need it 3 years ago. cause you had to get caught up.
Did you all have any questions on the fire department that myself or Deputy Burke can answer? And I believe Brandon's printing out a couple of those stipend forms so you have those back up.
No surprises with 2 new apparatus vehicles.
We hope not. I said we hope not. The 2 new trucks.
Everything was just as planned.
Not now.
No major surprises as we've taken possession.
Unlike the former ones not being used, there's, in the warranty.
Yeah, we had a sensor that needed replacement. It's under warranty, and I think the only real, and it's not even necessarily a surprise at this point, but finishing off the order, some of the equipment that we're still waiting on just because of supply chain issues, some extrication tools and things like that. It's not an issue with the order, it's just things are taking a little longer.
They can't get them off that ship from China.
Yeah, but no surprises. The truck's been great. Everybody seems to really appreciate that. And I think so. That's the current stipend form.
He's not the secretary. Ain't much holes in it, man. We got it.
I know, I was gonna say that, but.
Yeah.
So.
He is a PSO demon for us.
Come on, go back in the street.
So this is the same certification stipend program that we've had for quite a while. Nothing has changed on here. If you look at the first page, this is kind of where we're talking about the change under where it says main certification experience fire med. And if you look at the column that's on the left, it drops down and you have EMT and paramedic. Paramedic is currently allocated at 2,500. That's where we're requesting that increase. So changing that amount to be competitive with what other ALS agencies are offering their paramedics. Does that make sense?
Is that the same as a first responder?
Well, I mean, paramedic is really as advanced as you can get without being a doctor.
Okay.
At least on the first responder side of things.
So when they go to a medical call, you got somebody that's almost the same as somebody who's in an emergency room.
That's correct. One of the things Deputy Burke mentioned is we're currently BLS, which might be a slight change from, I think, the last time you were on council. BLS allows us to run basic life support, so EMTs, right? So that's something we started a few years ago, and we're working on now, and it's been great. And then through our strategic planning, it was decided that we would like to move towards advanced life support, which is basically having a paramedic response as well. So that's what we're trying to do. So we're in that process. So we're not ALS certified currently. That's what we're working towards, and we need to have paramedics on staff. We have to have equipment that's required through DHEC in order to do that. And so we're kind of in that process, if that makes sense.
Well, certainly also with the reconfiguration with the automobiles, the money that we're gonna save, that definitely can reinvest it in more training. Y'all do like one-time seminars on different subjects, like gang activity?
Yeah, I mean, we do all that as part of our, ongoing annual education. So we're required to go to certain classes to maintain any certification, whether it be law enforcement or like on the medical side, for instance, those guys got to go once a month. I mean, they're going to Mount Pleasant or wherever to get their what they call in-service training, right? They're going once a month. So for most of us, like law enforcement, et cetera, it's something that you can do, throughout the year. And then you just have to, at the end of the year, meet the criteria that you're required, right? Is that what
Y'all need any more money for that stuff
No, I mean, we're good. Neither one of us are requesting any increase, to there. I think we've gotten to the point where we're where we need to be and have the ability to be where we need to be. You know, the ALS thing, as you'll find, it's not a cheap venture, but it provides a massive service increase, right? The ability to respond to ALS is huge. It's just not cheap.
Gang training, guys, gang training.
They're here.
Oh, yeah.
It's on,
Make sure the flag's on the
YouTube.
left side.
It's on, YouTube. The rappers put their, they communicate and they also confess to crimes in their songs. It's what's going on in Chicago now is the solicitor's office. They've been working on investigations through the videos. So anyways, I've seen Folly Beach in the videos. Anybody can go to YouTube and watch. And YouTube, if you watch one, YouTube will suggest the next one to watch, and it kind of maps out where to go next. And I was kind of surprised at some of the stuff I saw. I did see Folly Beach on a video.
You drive the trip.
I believe I've heard Deputy Chief Burke in the past say ALS push some medications and you don't with BLS. Is that right? So
Yeah, they can.
they can't. BLS can.
No,
Cannot.
the ALS.
ALS can.
Paramedics.
What about fentanyl overdoses? Do you guys have what you need for on a BLS basis?
Yeah, so we, actually, it wasn't that long ago, I sent out to all staff that a lot of times they do it for free. You can attend these training classes for free and they give you, it's kind of like an EpiPen or whatever for those overdoses.
Does that have to go in the heart? Does that have to go in the heart?
Yeah, it's like it counteracts the fentanyl. But yeah, I mean, that's something that I guess do just basically the opioid.
I'm sorry, it's Narcan.
Okay.
Everyone's trained on, oh, it's a nasal
Spray up,
Narcan?
yeah, you
Oh, I
spray
didn't know
up
that.
the nasal.
Okay.
The EMTs can do
All of our public safety
But
officers can do it?
overdoses and stuff like that. Now, as far as,
Go ahead, Deputy Chief.
Huh?
Go ahead. I was gonna say, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. I actually went to be an instructor, about 2 years ago. The problem with that is we were trying to get Wagon Room to help us out with it, but, once COVID hit, I cannot instruct until I have one of their instructors come and help me do it the first time. And once COVID hit, they shut down all that additional training, so we're just trying to get them back up. As of right now, I think we have 5 officers that are Narcan, fully Narcan trained. I know, paramedics and the, firefighter side has several as well, but that is a goal of ours to get everybody trained and to have their own personal Narcan on the police side.
Does that seem like it's as much of a problem today as it was even just a few years ago?
Yes.
well,
Fentanyl
yeah.
overdoses?
Yeah, we're getting a little confused here, okay? The Narcan is for opioid overdoses, okay? When you start talking about this fentanyl poisoning and off the drugs and stuff like that, somebody that overdoses on the fentanyl and stuff like that, that's a regular cardiac problem that takes the CPR and a bunch of other medications to overcome. And in dealing with fentanyl overdoses from drugs like that yes, the Narcan will help protect the police officers and the first responders, but somebody that's in a complete cardiac arrest from fentanyl overdoses, that don't help out.
Okay.
So, we go into more of that advanced stuff. But right now, we have Narcan available on our apparatus as the BLS program that we can use for that.
Excellent. I wasn't aware those were separate things.
Sir?
I wasn't aware they were separate things, the opioid.
Well, yeah,
opiates and
opioid
fentanyl.
and fentanyl is two different things.
Okay, thank you.
It causes two different medical problems. Anyway. To answer your question, we do have Narcan to use in
Right.
both situations.
Good.
On the dispatch side, we're not requesting any change in the part-time salary line, but are asking the ability to raise the part-time pay to $15.50 an hour. Again, that's just to be comparable to what other agencies are offering. Let's see. So the dispatch capital line, the account is lower than it was last year. But the reason why is last year or I guess the year I'm working out currently, I was supposed to replace an obsolete radio console. But when the quote came back, the contract with county had ended, and as a result, the cost increased. So one of the things you'll see towards the end of this budget is that I'm gonna ask to move that money to a reserve account and then use the 3 that I'm requesting this year to do that replacement. That makes sense. The cost went from, like I said, about 6,000 to 9,000, so that's the request.
That include installation as well.
And that's really the only change in dispatch. And those are all the highlighted changes, and obviously if y'all have any questions or any more specifics, y'all.
Last question. What is the cost of the background check that we recently authorized? No,
Something we already paid.
Oh, okay. For like a retainer.
Yeah, it's like we pay for access to be able to run things like that, and so just running an additional 10 or whatever is not going to change.
Too easy. It's too easy, shit. Nitpicking anything,
You're very well organized. Gentlemen, ladies.
all right. So next Monday, we'll get some questions answered or email for then. Next Monday, we'll finish up public works and the rest of it. Next Monday, do you want us ready to like kind of go around and kind of, just it's gonna be kind of quick and go make any changes, propose them then and kind of see how it's work through them? All right. Beautiful. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen.
And you'll have the water and sewer budget next week.
And some of the main ones up in Chicago,